Pacers, Celtics. Game 1 is tonight. The Celtics and Pacers, I think, have both had a pretty similar path to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. And no one's talking about this. You know, when people look at the Pacers, they're calling their run fraudulent because, you know, the Bucks were banged up and the Knicks were beat up. Meanwhile, the Boston Celtics beat a Heat team that didn't have Jimmy Butler or Terry Rozier, their two best offensive players, and they beat a Cavaliers team that didn't have Jared Allen at all, their starting center, and they didn't have Donovan Mitchell for parts of that series as well, right? So, like, the Celtics haven't had a super grueling experience to get to this point either. The difference, though, is that the Celtics have been here before. Okay, like they were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year with Joe Mazzulla as their head coach, right? Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have played in the NBA Finals before. They've been to the Eastern Conference Finals or better six out of the last 8 years. Like, this team is seasoned. They've been here before. None of this is new to them, while everything is new for the Pacers, except for, of course, Pascal Siakam, who's won a title with the Raptors. Here's another difference. The Celtics took the beat-up Miami Heat and the beat-up Cleveland Cavaliers and disposed of both of them in 5 games, while the Pacers struggled for parts of their series against the Bucks and the Knicks, right? So don't get it twisted here. The Celtics are a much better team, but the Pacers and their offensive explosiveness gives them a puncher's chance in every game that they play. Okay, like they're kind of like Mike Tyson, right? They can come out and they can hit you with a 20-4 run and the game is over. Okay, just one run like that, and that might be all she wrote because this Pacers team is so good offensively. Okay, the Pacers are very capable of winning the series, but I don't think that they're going to. I like the Celtics to win this series in 7 games. I've watched a lot of Boston this year because I am an NBA psycho who doesn't have many better things to do. Okay, so if you haven't watched a lot of Boston this year, here's what you need to know. Kristaps Porzingis is the guy that makes this team an absolute juggernaut. Okay, the Celtics are much easier to beat when Kristaps Porzingis is out of the lineup. Without Porzingis, the Celtics lack frontline depth, and they just, like, Porzingis is a really good rim protector. He anchors the defense well. He can stretch the floor on offense, and he can finish around the rim. He's a very good player. Here's the thing, though. Porzingis has missed several games during the playoffs due to a calf strain. It's a scary injury that can lead to, potentially a torn Achilles and things of that nature. So Porzingis has been held out for a while. He's almost back. It looks like he's going to come back for either game 3 or game 4 of this series. I'm not worried about the Pacers winning at home. Okay, they haven't lost at Gainbridge Fieldhouse since March 18th. I think it's one of the best home venues in the sport. Okay, so here's the thing. The Pacers, I think their best chance to steal home court advantage is tonight. There's no Porzingis. The Celtics haven't played a game in almost a week. I think it's going to take the Celtics at least half a quarter, maybe a full quarter, to adjust to just playing in a playoff game, right, with that level of intensity. I think that it's going to be tough for them to adjust to the pace that the Pacers are going to play at, right? Like, the Pacers have a real opportunity tonight to go into the other garden, TD Garden, and win this game. The Pacers are going to have an opportunity to jump on them early as the Celtics kind of wipe the rust off. All right, because, like, not playing in 6 days is a really hard thing. And then to come back and play against this Pacers team that can just score like crazy. Like, if the Pacers can jump out to a 12-point lead in like the first 6 minutes, they're going to have a legitimate chance here in game 1 to steal it. I think it's imperative for the Pacers to get off to a good start tonight. It needs to happen. Okay, the Pacers had the second best offensive rating in the NBA. This is a team that can really score. They've proven against both the Bucks and the Knicks that they are more than capable of scoring the basketball, whether that's hitting threes from the outside like they did against Milwaukee, or scoring on the interior like they did against the Knicks. The issue is that even though the Pacers had the second best offense in the NBA this year, and when you look at the offensive rating stat, which is just points per 100 possessions, they trailed behind the Boston Celtics. The Celtics were the best offensive team in the NBA this year. Okay, the Pacers are much improved defensively, though, right? Like that is the reason why the Pacers are in the Eastern Conference Finals. Okay, as bad as they were, especially in the first half of the regular season defensively, they have gotten better. Post All-Star break, the Pacers were 18th in defensive rating. That is about average. And when the offense is this good, if you're average on defense, then you can win a lot of games. Okay, and that's good enough to beat a lot of teams. But I just don't know if it's enough to beat the Celtics because they are also obviously awesome on offense. This is also one of the best defensive teams in the NBA, right? But let's start with the Pacers. How are the Pacers going to defend the Boston Celtics? Okay, the headliners for the Celtics, the names that you need to know: Jason Tatum, it's one of the 10 best players in the NBA. Jaylen Brown, that's a top 20 player on the planet. Those are the two guys that this very dynamic offense runs through. Okay, everyone else on the floor for the Celtics, everyone else can shoot, and everyone else is capable of creating a shot. Okay, Derek White should have been an all-star this year, right? He's going to start at one of the guard spots. Okay, he's averaging like 18 points a game. Drew Holiday, that's a former NBA champion with the Milwaukee Bucks. He was the second best player on that team. He's the fourth best player on this roster. Okay, and then of course you have Al Horford, who embodies winning in every single way. That's going to be the starting lineup tonight because there's no Porzingis. Obviously, when Porzingis comes back, they'll slide Al Horford to the bench, right? And Porzingis is obviously highly skilled offensively himself. And they are loaded with two-way players. Every guy there that I just mentioned can also play defense. Okay, Aaron Nesmith and Andrew Nembhard are both going to have to be at their best defensively for the Pacers to have any sort of chance to win this series. I know that Aaron Nesmith will. The Celtics drafted Aaron Nesmith and then traded him to the Pacers. Okay, so he always gets up for these games when the Pacers play against the Celtics. Pascal Siakam is likely going to be called on to defend Brown or Tatum. He's a very capable defender, right? And I talked about his defense last series against the Knicks. I thought he was good. Didn't think he was great. He's going to have to be really good on the ball in this series for the Pacers to have a chance. Okay, the other two players that have to do their jobs defensively, because I think that a lot is going to be put on him, all right, on these two guys. Okay, Tyrese Halliburton and Miles Turner have to be really good in this series, right? Because Joe Mazzulla, he's a young coach. He is a matchup hunter. Okay, the Celtics, so some teams like the Pacers, they run like an on-ball screen action in order to create a good look, right? It's pick and roll, pick and pop with the sole purpose of scoring. The Celtics, they set screens to get switches, and then they attack matchups in more of a one-on-one type of thing because they have guys who can beat defenders off the dribble. Okay, so the Celtics are going to test Tyrese Halliburton in this series. We all know Halliburton is not a good defender. It's not a secret. This man can't defend a chair. Honestly, I don't think Tyrese Halliburton could defend me. Okay, I'll just be honest with you. All right, and the Celtics are going to attack him all series. The Knicks did the same thing, but it's going to be different. Okay, the Knicks made whoever Halliburton was defending the screener, right? So he would then hedge the screen and allow Brunson's primary defender to then get back into the play, and then Halliburton would retreat back to whoever he was guarding. Okay, the Celtics aren't going to do that. If the Celtics want to, they can just throw the ball to whoever Halliburton is defending and let them go to work because they have so many guys who are good with the ball in their hands. If the Pacers want to win this series, then Halliburton is going to have to get some stops. Okay, like he doesn't have to be, Dennis Rodman or Scottie Pippen on the perimeter. That's not who Halliburton needs to be. He just needs to be average. Okay, if he can just be an average defender, then the Pacers will be fine because Miles Turner is going to be playing in this series. And in game 6 and 7, we saw some flashes of the elite defender that he is very capable of being. And when Halliburton makes mistakes, Miles Turner has to rotate and protect the rim well. That's what he has to do. Miles Turner, the two-time block champion, very capable of defending the rim at an elite level. Now, it might be a little bit tougher for him in this series, and I'm very interested to see how the Pacers deal with this, right? Because Miles Turner, when he's on the floor, he's going to be defending Al Horford or Kristaps Porzingis. Those are both very good shooters, right? Al Horford, he can step out onto the perimeter and he can knock down threes. Same thing with Kristaps Porzingis. And Miles Turner's going to guard one of those two guys. So if they pull Miles Turner away from the rim, it's going to be really interesting to see what the Pacers do. Because obviously, if Miles Turner's standing 26 feet away from the basket, he can't block shots. So when he is around the rim, he has to contest those shots. But he's going to have to figure out a way to still impact the interior. He's still going to have to find a way to be impactful on the interior defensively for the Pacers in this series if they're going to have a chance, okay? He has to erase the mistakes that Halliburton and these perimeter defenders are going to make against the Celtics. He has to do it, okay? And I think that when we watch the NBA, especially young teams, we very quickly can identify different chinks in the armor, right? Like that's part of just young teams being in the playoffs. That's part of the growth. And I think we've seen a lot of growth from this Pacers team throughout the playoffs. But when any playoff team loses, there's usually a thing that you can point to. Okay, for example, the Thunder this year, the youngest one seed in the history of the NBA. They lost to the Dallas Mavericks because they couldn't rebound the ball well enough. Chet Holmgren is going to have to go and work on that in the offseason. The Nuggets lost to the Timberwolves because they didn't have a real point guard and they couldn't protect the rim well enough. So they're going to go into the offseason and they're going to have to address that. That same thing is probably going to happen to the Pacers in this series. I've got the Celtics winning in 7. And I think the Pacers are going to walk away from this series. And every team does this. When the season ends, you do an exit meeting, with the coaches and some of the front office guys. And what's going to happen is they're going to have these exit meetings. And Rick Carlisle is going to sit down with Tyrese Halliburton. He's going to look at him in his eyes, and he's going to tell Tyrese Halliburton that he has to become a better defender if the Pacers are ever going to win a title. Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets had to do the exact same thing in order to enable them to win a title. Luka did that this last offseason. He's come back a much better defender for the Mavericks, and because of that, they're in the Western Conference Finals, and they're going to have a chance to win an NBA title. Okay, there are a lot of young players that have to develop their game defensively to give their teams a chance at winning an NBA championship. That is the boat that Halliburton falls into, and I think that's going to be pretty blatant during this series. When we look back on this series, the storyline is going to be, wow, the Celtics are really good, and wow, Tyrese Halliburton is a terrible defender. Now, as bad of a defender as Tyrese Halliburton is, he's awesome on the offensive end, just like the Pacers are in general. This is the second best offensive team in the NBA. So, like, the Celtics have to figure out a way to guard the Pacers too, and I'm going to get into that when we come back here in about 4 minutes.